Katobi Wastelanders, I'm Mo Fisher and I'm glad to see you on the Lost Holotapes channel, where we delve into the lore of the Fallout Wasteland in detail, reconstructing the chronology and geographical logic of Evans. Last time we dissected the exposition of the first season of the recently released series, and today we'll be delving into its main plot. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and check the links in the description after watching. Since we may have many new viewers, I think it's important for me to address the specifics of the Lost Holotapes format. I'm not just recounting the canonical dry summary of what you can read on the fandom, but I'm trying to create a cohesive narrative based on the canon and other lore developments. It's like telling a story around a campfire. And as a storyteller, I want the story to be logical and interesting, so I allow myself to make adjustments, which I always honestly telegraph. So I highly recommend watching previous episodes of the Lost Holotapes in chronological order to have a full understanding of the logic and context of Evans, as well as to better understand this format. Get comfortable on your couch, put on your bathrobes and slippers, and stock up on popcorn. We are going to watch a movie. The series begins, if we don't count the opening with the destruction of Los Angeles, with the audience meeting the grown-up Lucy McLean, who, through an interview with the Council of Vault 33 to become a bride and receive male seeds, gives exposition on herself, some characters and the Vault as a whole. I think it turned out great because two very important expositional tasks were solved in one scene. We learned that Lucy is a smart, excellent girl with the red ribbons shining on her pigtails. She's a fighter, a shooter, a reader and the winner of the contest Best Young Pipe Master of 2296. She is her father's daughter, but she has no idea who he really is, having been too young when they ended up on the surface. She was the only one who applied, so the council consisting of Betty Pearson, Reg McPhee and Woody Thomas approves her immediately. Wedding preparations begin and pregnant Stephanie puts Lucy in a wedding dress with dates of some previous weddings marked on it, which took place in 2272, 2281, 91 and 94. I think this is a very cool detail of the culture, emphasizing the importance of these events in Vault 33 life. The whole vault is getting ready. Tables are set, pickles are pickled, kettles are heated, and a projector hanging over the atrium transmits images of the Nebraska mountains onto the cold walls of the vault. Very soothing picture. The moment comes when Chet, Lucy's cousin and sexual partner for the last 10 years, with a broken heart opens the doors dividing vaults 33 and 32 and lets disguised raiders inside. Lucy was introduced to a glorious stallion Monty in exchange for some parts and a new batch of seeds. The feast begins, during which Lucy's grown-up brother Norman notices the unusual behavior, habits and appearance of the guests. He sneakily enters Vault 32 and discovers that it has long been dead. Meanwhile, Lucy is alone with her fiancé and they waste no time indulging in what the wedding was planned for. At some point, the raiders discard their masks and begin a massacre. Lucy fights with Monty, inflicting serious damage on him, but receives a stab in her spleen. Seemingly, she didn't invest points into medicine skill and pulls out a knife. She would have bled to death, but thankfully she had a stimpack. Raiders first seize all the weapons from the vault's armory, and all that's left for the residents are tranquilizers against firearms and axes. Only a few among the vault dwellers resist the raiders, including Hank with Stephanie, who nevertheless becomes a widow pirate. The projector plays a huge role in this scene, and its execution turned out really cool. During the chaos, a bullet hits it, and the film starts burning, giving the effect of a fire to that serene picture of mountains and nature on the walls, symbolizing Lucy's state of mind and the collapse of her small world. Then the film burns completely, giving a new effect resembling a nuclear mushroom before the projector goes out, returning everyone to the cold walls of reality. In general, Lee Moldaver takes several survivors hostage and gives Hank an ultimatum: either they or his daughter. Hank, considering his dialogue options, locks his daughter in the closet as if it was an impregnable bank vault. Then, using speech 80+, he selects a secret dialogue option and says, "Take me instead." Lee couldn't go against the script and, after doping Hank with tranquilizers, takes him with her, finally blowing up a bomb at the entrance to Vault 32, thereby collapsing the tunnel. In fact, it was Hank they needed, as he knows the code to launch the observatory machine. Meanwhile, we find ourselves at the Brotherhood of Steel boot camp, and with a blow to the nose, we meet the grown-up Maximus. I wonder if his name is a reference to the cancelled Fallout Brotherhood of Steel 2. Maximus is an aspirant, which is a cadet rank in the Brotherhood. He is beaten up by a crowd of other aspirants, led by the bully Thaddeus. Over a few scenes, we learn that life in the Brotherhood camp is not easy. Toilet cleaning, drills, training, humiliations, more toilet cleaning and playing basketball with bricks. Aspirants spend time in lectures, where they gain knowledge with punches, and then he arrives, the Pridwen. The Brotherhood of Steel airship from the East Coast, from which Brotherhood Knights jump off, arriving on a mission to California. Aspirants admire the armor as it has already become a rarity. This scene is terrifying. It canonizes the ending of the Brotherhood of Steel and/or the Minutemen, ruling out the Institute and the Railroad as potentially possible. Those who were rooting for the Brotherhood's victory in the Commonwealth, rejoice. Vault 33 begins to tidy itself up. Bodies are thrown into the composter, the wounded are given aid, bloody positive posters are replaced with clean positive posters. Somehow, the Vault Dwellers manage to capture 16 raiders, apparently thanks to tranquilizers. Lucy at the meeting advocates for a search party to get her dad back, but her idea is immediately rejected because the council doesn't want to expose the Vault to even greater danger, although, as Norman points out, they just don't want to lose the power they've gained. Lucy wasn't about to accept that and persuades Norman and Chad to accompany her and open the doors to the surface. Aspirant Dane is chosen to serve as a squire for Titus, but in the morning he empirically discovers a blade in his boot, severely cutting his leg. Suspicion falls somehow on Maximus, but after hearing his whining they appoint him as a replacement squire. He undergoes the initiation ceremony and the knight burns his initials on his neck. This is an interesting ritual. Watching it, we understand that the Brotherhood is becoming increasingly like a religious order. The Pridwen didn't just fly in from the Commonwealth. The Brotherhood of Steel was looking for Siggy Wilsig and wanted to capture the artifact in his neck. Some may miss a very important detail. The Brotherhood of Steel in the West is still alive. It did not perish in the war against the NCR, but more importantly, the head branch of the Brotherhood by 2296 became the one on the East Coast, so it's the Commonwealth that gives instructions to the West to find Siggy, and it's the red and white flag of the Eastern branch that is hoisted in the boot camp. In general, the knights, including Titus, receive orders to go to the wasteland to find Wilsig, accompanied by the squires, whose main task seems to be carrying golf bags. They are sent off on a mission by combat priests swinging censers. Well, that's surely orthodox. At the end of the episode, we find ourselves somewhere outside California. Poncho's gang kills the guards from Dom Pedro's gang, who are guarding a graveyard, or more precisely, a certain grave. In this grave lies Cooper Howard, who has lost his nose and is not feral due to botched serum injections. These serums are a new addition to the Fallout setting, giving ghouls some control over their condition and not turning the question of fertilization into complete randomness. All ghouls tend towards fertilization, but serums allow this process to be delayed. If I understood correctly, this Dom Pedro's gang periodically releases Cooper to do some work, and then he goes back into the coffin. Poncho's father knew Cooper, so his gang dug up the ghoul, offering him to join them in hunting Siggy, as many bounty companies beside the Brotherhood had leads on these notorious scientists. Unfortunately for the gang, the quick-tempered and skillful Cooper engaged in a verbal altercation with them and kills the bandits, then sets out to find Siggy himself because he does their shit because he loves the game. Episode number 2. Lucy explores a world unfamiliar to her and crosses paths with Siggy by the campfire. 4 saves her from a red roach, and Siggy warns her that this world will kill her and she should return to the vault. As they approach the wilds, Titus gets bored and forces the pilot to drop him and his squire to the ground so he can shoot at something. All this time he behaves like a jerk, humiliating Maximus in every possible way, including making him clean his codpiece. They find a cave used for burying radioactive waste, now a nest for Yao Gai, and the cowardly Titus forces Maximus to enter it. To his misfortune, a huge 10-foot bear turns out to be behind him and attacks him. Titus abandons Maximus and flees, delivering the best line in the history of cinema, but the bear chases him and inflicts fatal wounds before being shot by the squire. Titus, not the smartest socially, shifts the blame, humiliates and threatens Maximus with retribution while asking for a Stimpack injection. Maximus simply sits on a rock, tells Titus he's unworthy of wearing armor, and waits for him to perish. Lucy arrives in Philly, where she encounters Siggy again, whom the local trader Majun was supposed to escort to Moldaver and ended up roasting Lucy. A ghoul appears and immediately shoots Siggy in the leg. From the brief prior dialogue, we learn that there are exactly 6 bounty agencies operating in California and possibly the surrounding wastelands. While we have nowhere to use this yet, this info might come in handy in the future. Majun announces a reward for the ghoul's head to the entire settlement, leading to a classic Wild West shootout. The ghoul kills a dozen people before Maximus arrives in power armor, starting to fight with the ghoul. Injured Majun attaches the Jimmy limp to Siggy's leg and shifts her escort mission to Lucy, who escapes from the town with Siggy. The ghoul manages to damage Maximus' power armor and fatally wound the dog. However, he gives 4 a magical Stimpack, and the dog is once again determined to find her owner. Thus, the ghoul sets off in pursuit of Siggy. When Siggy attempts to walk, it's just hard to watch. He's losing a lot of blood and eventually gives up. He tells Lucy that he took cyanide and that she needs to decapitate him and deliver his head to Moldaver, just in case he kept a Reaper in his bag. He's like, okie doke, and gets to work. Now the wolf Siggy's head becomes a MacGuffin. Episode number 3. Maximus contacts the headquarters and pretends to be Titus, intending to continue the mission alone. He tries to repair his suit and sells a tooth for Caps to pay for repairs. While he was hanging out in Philly, his armor was almost looted by Tom's gang. They beat Maximus, but armed with the toilet seat ring, he managed to break through to the armor. The toilet cleanups prepared him well in life. He managed to put his hand into the glove with which he grabbed the gang's leader's head. The others flee. If I were Maximus, I would loot Tom. After all, it's not so easy to find such clean white socks in the wasteland. The Brotherhood wasn't ready to leave the night without a golf bag carrier, so they sent Thaddeus to Maximus, who doesn't realize that it's not Titus in the suit in front of him. It doesn't matter who is in front of him in the armor, he still has to clean his codpiece. Lucy ends up on flooded Hollywood Boulevard, where she takes a break and feeds a phone. Well, you can already guess what happens to the phone. It gets swallowed by Gulper. Then the radioactive creature attacks Lucy and drags Siggy's head away. Lucy, upset by impossibility of exchanging the head for her father, is found by the ghoul, beaten and is dipped in water to lure the creature. When the creature attacks Lucy, she breaks the ghoul's serum capsules, which infuriates him greatly. He captures her and leads her into the desert, torturing her with dehydration and leaving 4 on the shore. In Vault 3, there is a community discussion about the fate of the prisoners. The residents and council, living in a world of pink ponies, suggest teaching them mathematics and philosophy so that they can be reintegrated back into civil society. Only Norman voices the unpopular but correct opinion that they should be eliminated. One-eyed Stephanie supports him in this. While Woody and Reggie engage in populism, snatching the microphone from each other, an engineer enters the atrium trying to privately discuss with the council the malfunction of the water chip and that the water supply will only last for 2 months. Woody and Reggie disgrace themselves, forcing the engineer to announce it to everyone. Perhaps Betty caused the chip malfunction to appear wiser against these two, and then solve the problem, as the series did not return to this topic, although we know what consequences the quest for a new chip can lead to. Meanwhile, Maximus and Thaddeus find Siggy's body, and then the creature itself. Well-fed Thaddeus looked juicy, so the creature started devouring him. Maximus tries to pull the squire out, but it looks like he's pushing him even deeper in, maybe hoping to choke the mutant. But the Cooper's serums start working, poisoning the mutant and making it vomit its stomach contents, including partially digested Siggy's head. Taking the head and the dog that doesn't leave it, the couple sets off to find a place to spend the night. Episode number 4. Stephanie can't cope with Bert's loss and forces Chet to become her new partner. During their attempt at copulation, she goes into labor. Norman pulls Chet out of the uncomfortable situation and they, sneaking into Vault 32 through debris, explore it. They find piles of bodies, inscriptions on the walls hinting at the terrible secret of Vault 31, and learn that the door outside was opened with Rose McLean's Pip-Boy. The ghoul brings Lucy to the Super Duper Mart located on Santa Monica Boulevard. On the way they encounter a friend of Cooper who was undergo a sterilization and who was granted mercy, but had his buttocks taken to be dried in the sun. Also, Lucy and Cooper lose a finger to each other, and Lucy begins to embrace the rules of surface life, drinking radioactive water. The supermarket is controlled by 2 entrepreneurs, Huey and Squirrel, who love to watch cartoons even when the TV is off. Their business involved acquiring slaves and hostages whom they gutted for organs and sold, though lately they've been dealing with expiration dates. It was a joke about the ghouls. Cooper tries to sell Lucy to them to get 60 doses of serum for 2 months, meaning that ghouls have to take a dose daily. I think these serums might be made from ghoul blood, plasma or glands. This would explain why these 2 coach potatoes have such a large supply of them and why Cooper was so eager to feast on his friend Reggie's appetizing buttocks. Despite being drugged, Lucy manages to free herself, damage the robot and force Huey and Squirrel to release the prisoners from all cells. Huey tries to say it's a bad idea, but Lucy is foolish and doesn't listen. In one of the cells were feral ghouls that attack the people. The only survivor, Lucy, leaves the store as a completely different person, which is reflected in her new appearance, and gives Cooper, whom she finds on his deathbed at the entrance and whom he taunts, a few capsules before leaving. Cooper, recovering, goes inside the store to retrieve the remaining serum supplies. However, he couldn't pass by the free alcohol, powdered sugar and the contents of the syringe, and ended up tripping on the couch watching his own pre-war movie. Episode 5. Maximus and Thaddeus celebrate their victory by the campfire, and Thaddeus asks for ritual branding from, as he thinks, Titus. After the ritual, Maximus confesses to the squire who he really is and suggests sticking to the legend when they return to the Brotherhood to avoid getting into trouble. Thaddeus doesn't like this and gets very angry. A fight ensues, during which Maximus crushes Thaddeus' foot, but the latter turns the armor power off by taking out the fusion core. Without it, Maximus can't even get out of the armor. Thaddeus takes the golf bag, Sigishead, and leaves accompanied by the dog. Luckily for Maximus, the next day Lucy finds him and saves him, but then collapses due to severe radiation poisoning. Maximus saves her in return with the right away, and they agree to help each other and set off on a journey. Along the way, they get into a shootout on the bridge with cannibals, whom Maximus calls fiends. It's unclear whether he means this as a generic term or if these are the same fiends who were supposed to perish in the epilogue of Fallout New Vegas. There's certainly a chance that they survived and migrated to Southern California, but we'll only find out about that at best in the second season. I genuinely like that Lucy keeps trying to do the right thing over and over again, but it just doesn't work on the surface. Then they find the cause of the fans' heart attacks, Shady Sands Crater, which we've accepted in our narrative as the Boneyards. In search of medicine, she and the wounded Maximus find Houghton Hospital but fall into a trap and slide into Vault 4. An interesting detail in the hospital's design. There are lights powered by the vault generator, which was supposed to guide potential victims into the airlock with a hatch, the door of which is labeled medical supplies, just to lure scavengers in for sure. In Vault 33, the Overseer elections begin, and it's important to note that it's already 2297. This hints that all previous events took place at the end of December. Reggie and Woody are a joke because they don't understand politics and social manipulation. It turns out that hanging up 10 posters was not enough to gain the trust of voters. But they wouldn't have won the elections anyway against the ex-resident of Vault 31. Betty wins, garnering 98% of the votes. Norman, learning that all Overseers have always been from Vault 31 and reflecting on the proverb, if things go glum, choose from Vault 31, asks Stephanie what makes her native vault different from the 33rd. She responds that mashed potatoes are better, to which Norman replies that it's the same thing his father said. Meanwhile, Betty announces the repopulation of Vault 32, and that to do so, some of the residents of the 33rd will have to permanently move to the 32nd. But before showing the vault, it was thoroughly cleaned, all bodies were disposed of, and all terminals were destroyed. Episode number 6. Awakened Cooper is found and taken to the government's headquarters by the sheriffs, who thought that Cooper destroyed the business they were protecting. The leader, Sorrel Booker, doesn't like that the business paying for protection was destroyed, but despite all friendship, they can't just let Cooper go because what would others think? This, by the way, suggests that there are other businesses and settlements in LA area. After exchanging pleasantries with Sorrel, Cooper gets rid of the ropes, kills the sheriffs, and is surprised to learn about the existence of Lee Moldaver, whose poster was on the wanted board and whom he remembers as Miss Williams. Meanwhile, Lucy meets the strange inhabitants of Vault 4, including NCR refugees and mutants, among whom was the one-eyed Overseer Benjamin. They are greeted kindly, and Dumbledore says that they can go to the 3rd floor at Hogwarts. Benjamin says that they can go to the 12th level of the vault. Maximus doesn't trust this hospitality, but Lucy feels like at home. However, Maximus' suspicions begin to dissipate when he settled into his own room, shown the concept of hot water, given slippers, and treated to a food package with black caviar. He likes it here. Lucy finds herself in the NCR Museum and then in a strange ritual honoring the fallen residents of the city, which scares her, especially when the Overseer's assistant brings a banner with the person who caused the massacre in Vault 33. Among the items on the altar was a portrait of Kimball, which is unclear if it's an Easter egg or a hint that he died in Shady Sands, which in turn could indicate that he survived the assassination attempt in the War for Mojave. Let's leave this question for the second season. Lucy decides to find out what secrets are hidden on the 12th level. She finds holotapes of horrific experiments and test subjects in the chambers. Lucy tries to hide when the double-nosed nurse enters the room, but her shoe squeaks. I really like that contrary to the standard cinema trope, the noser didn't go towards the sound and shout into the space, "Hey, who's there? Show yourself!" but immediately activated the alarm and grabbed a harpoon gun. A fight ensues between him and Lucy. She splashes him with acid, but is captured by the arriving residents. Episode number 7. Cooper gathers info to track down Moldaver and finds Adam's farm, supposedly once inhabited by an NCR ranger living with his daughter and son, Tommy. The ranger's eldest son used to live with them, but he joined Moldaver a couple of years ago, so Cooper killed the eldest in Philly and found a letter on him indicating the younger son, also affiliated with Moldaver. Having received information about Moldaver's whereabouts, Cooper provoked Tommy into attacking and killed him to ensure that nobody would show up in a few years seeking vengeance. The saddest death in the series actually, except for the phone. Lucy, arrested, is told and shown what Vault 4 was like, once again shattering her world where at least the vaults were supposed to be paradise. She is taken to what seems like an execution, but instead they pompously cut her ropes with a ceremonial sword and release her with food supplies to the surface because the residents of Vault 4 were not actually ruthless and don't tolerate murder. Lucy thanks them for their generosity, but then Maximus enters the scene in power armor, brought up from the surface by the Vault residents, charged with the fusion core he pulled from the Vault's reactor. He scatters the guards and possibly breaks a couple of ribs before Lucy stops him. They are both expelled, but this time without supplies. Despite the situation, Lucy asks Maximus to return the fusion core, which he does reluctantly, leaving the useless armor on the surface. Thaddeus, on his way to the radio station, locks up 4 at the Red Rocket gas station and encounters a serum trader. In exchange for a fusion core, the trader gives Thaddeus a healing serum, which in reality begins turning Thaddeus into a ghoul. Perhaps this is partly based on Hancock's story from Vault 4, who also turned into a ghoul after drinking something. By the way, in this scene at the Red Rocket it's snowing, confirming that the events take place in winter. However, why snow fell only above the gas station while the ghoul was drying Reggie's buttocks in the sun remains a mystery. In Vault 33 something strange happens. Despite the idea of reintegrating raiders into society through reading books, the raiders turn out poisoned, which didn't surprise either Betty or Norman. Before they can recover from the shock, the residents of the Vault are shuffled between Vaults 32 and 33 by order of the new overseer, so that friends end up separated. Norman stays in Vault 33 and Chet moves with Stephanie to Vault 32. Stephanie, as one of Bud's buds, is appointed acting overseer. Episode number 8. Maximus and Lucy find Thaddeus at the radio station, which he used to call for an evacuation squad. There lives a DJ who plays awful screeching music, and the radio station is surrounded by traps in the bodies of those who try to stop its broadcast. Introducing the radio station and its host is another argument to the discussion of recreating this setting, because it's an integral part of the series, starting from Fallout 3 and ending with fun modes. Thaddeus tries to shoot his comrade but steps on a trap and gets an arrow in his neck. However, to everyone's surprise, he doesn't die. Lucy, who ironically pulls a knife out of herself, tells Thaddeus not to touch the arrow, but who is she to listen to her advice? Thaddeus' wound instantly heals, and Maximus suspects that Thaddeus is turning into a ghoul and that the Brotherhood of Steel will execute him. Vertibirds appear on the horizon, and Maximus takes Siggy's head from Thaddeus, allowing him to leave, and gives it to Lucy to let her find her father. He takes some loser's head out of a bear trap, and we can witness quite disgusting kiss scene. After Lucy leaves, Maximus with the head is taken and transported to Philly, which was just captured by the Brotherhood and turned into an outpost. The Elder has many questions, especially about what happened to Titus, why Maximus lied that he died, and most importantly, why he thought the Brotherhood was so stupid that he brought a fake Siggy's head. It seemed that after all this he should definitely be executed, but Maximus says he knows where the real head is, so they let him go and forgive all his sins. I understand that the Elder internally sympathizes with Maximus and sees him as a model of honor, but I don't understand how the system of rules and punishments works in the Brotherhood, for God's sake. While the Vault dwellers are busy resettling, Norman infiltrates Betty's office and hacks her terminal. Yes, exactly as it's done in Fallout World, by guessing the encrypted word in 4 attempts. Thank you for introducing this into the series. On behalf of his overseer, Norman writes to the overseer of Vault 31 and asks him to open the gear door. Norman is shocked to find a brain attached to a vacuum cleaner and capsules with frozen Vault-Tec managers. Bud can't let him go and locks him in a room, offering to use the capsule left by his father. Having made several circles throughout the series, Lucy finally arrives at the observatory, where she meets Moldaver and also finds her father in a cage and her feral mother chained to a chair. You know, I think this ghoul came from the studio next door, where they were shooting The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead. You know, Fallout wasn't my first franchise. My madness started much earlier and with something completely different. Anyway, Moldaver tells Lucy what her father actually did, who is in this room, her mother, and what happened over the last few years. The last piece of Lucy's world crumbles as she realizes what a monster her father was. She gives Siggy's head and demands her father to enter the access code into the device. Moldaver successfully activates the cold fusion. But then the Brotherhood of Steel arrives. They intend to take the technology. The raiders shoot back and even shoot down one of the vertibirds, which crashes behind the observatory, as reflected in the ending credits of the 7th episode. But the ragged raiders can defeat the knights in tin suits, even though they inflict significant damage on them. Somewhere during the skirmish, Cooper, who earlier found a dog at the gas station, breaks into the observatory. He starts a shootout with the Brotherhood. Maximus breaks into the room and inadvertently frees Hank, after which he gets punched again and departs into oblivion. Cooper forces Hank to retreat and Lucy ends her mother's suffering, after which the pair with the dog sets off to find who knows what in the new season. I laugh at the scene of the ghoul heading towards the Hollywood sign after escaping from the observatory, because he's actually going back north almost towards the observatory. Injured Moldaver activates the facility and powers the entire Los Angeles with energy, after which she leaves the server. The Brotherhood brothers who entered recognize Maximus as the killer of the Raider chieftain. Overall, I think one of the themes of the second season will be the use of nuclear synthesis and the energy generated by the Brotherhood of Steel as a resource for controlling the territory of Los Angeles and establishing a quasi-totalitarian state, similar to what the East Coast chapter did using the purified water. Hank, on the other hand, reaches New Vegas and looks pensively at it, after which the credits fly over the strip. There are several items here that need attention. Firstly, Deathclaw skulls. They will most likely appear in the new season. Secondly, the flyover shows a clearly abandoned New Vegas, a crashed NCR vertebrate on the strip, destroyed Securitrons, Deathclaw skulls, and breached gates. I assume this hints either at the Legion's victory in the war, or that New Vegas was overrun by Deathclaws from a quarry, for example. However, with the Legion's victory, Kimball should have died at the Hoover Dam. The third important aspect is settlements in the Mojave. In the last frame we can count as many as 5 visible settlements, not including launch shacks. The problem is that the geography of the area differs significantly from both reality and the game, but I would guess that, moving from right to left, the settlements are Novak, Nipton, Jean with the NCR prison, Prim and Good Springs. Smoke is pouring from Prim and Good Springs, indicating that the settlements are active. However, again, these could be intentional settlements or purely for the last shot visuals, and they may not appear in the second season, or they could be completely different from the ones I mentioned. This whole last part is all speculation at this point, which could take any form. And with that we conclude the analysis of the first season of the official Fallout series. Agree, it's been quite a ride. Overall, I'm extremely pleased with what I've seen, but I'll admit that I don't enjoy making adjustments and adding my own lore pieces, but I have to do it for the greater goal of Holotapes. I'm anxiously waiting the next season, and I anticipate I'll have to revise 10 episodes I released earlier, as the action will take place in New Vegas, and one of the endings of Fallout New Vegas will be canonized, I guess. At the moment it's unclear which one, because the end credits of the 8th episode show both crashed NCR vertebrates and broken Securitrons. Perhaps Vegas is already essentially extinct. Maybe they'll also show Cooper's adventures before 2296 and the events that led him to the grave, so I expect the appearance of the mentioned Dom Pedro and the shading of light on settlements and factions in other wasteland Cooper might have encountered. I also think that the government will play a significant role in the new season, as well as revealing the fate of the NCR state in the Northern Territories. Perhaps I will be right in my theories. If you enjoyed watching the video and my series in general, the link to which is in the description, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe and leave a comment. You can also even donate me a cap if you would like to, so I don't have to trade in serums. Well, that's it. Thoroughly study the biographies and motivations of the overseers you choose, and then we'll meet again in the Wasteland Wanderers. End of the holotape.